All right, welcome back to another episode of David Mitchell's Soapbox reaction stuff thingy. I was actually going to do a thing on Piers Morgan, as I had mentioned in one of my previous episodes. Apparently, British people really don't like him that much. For the record, I think in America, because at a time when there were, hordes ravening at the gate, I don't know, the wolves were at the gate or something like that. There were people who, in no uncertain terms, wanted other individuals, primarily, I think, on the right, to be deplatformed. And Piers was one of the individuals who, to his credit, was willing to talk to a lot of different people from a lot of different perspectives. He was willing to indulge those alternate viewpoints. And I think because of that, he perhaps rightly earned himself a degree of goodwill from the American individuals, at least those of a conservative sort. But it feels like people in Britain kind of have a different perspective of him, and I think it has to do with maybe with regards to some scandals, and maybe him being a bit of a pompous little jackanape. I don't know. In any case, I didn't really find a lot of the stuff I wanted to find on him. But I did find a segment that I want to look at some point here about Meghan Markle. In any case, I digress. David Mitchell, people. All right, 3, 2, 1, mark. Last time. All right. Without further ado, let's get into this.
You may remember a few weeks ago I fouled up an otherwise perfectly good 3 minutes of your day by agonizing about my inability to give flowers.
Must be a real problem for those of us who haven't forsworn the company of women. Yeah! Alright.
Well, I've been thinking it over since, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm even more of an emotionally repressed basket case than
yes, I did think of that beforehand. You have no idea how much thought went into that.
I thought, which was a nice moment for me. The thing is, never mind flowers, I'm not even capable of successfully giving a compliment. Well, that's not quite true.
I just done a video on Dr. K. Compliments are always like a little bit hard to receive, kind of. Like insults, I can like good-natured ragging. I feel like that's kind of men's version of compliments, is kind of taking the piss out of one another. You're just kind of like that. That's kind of our version of it. That's our idea of hanging with each other. I feel like women are far better at doing the whole like, "Oh, you look wonderful." For the record, I think sometimes that's like completely meaningless drivel that they like. I don't know. I feel like sometimes a woman being nice to you is in no way meaningfully linked to them actually liking you. Like the fact that they compliment how you look or something about you does not mean as much as maybe, like, it doesn't necessarily indicate like a genuine interest or appreciation for that thing. Women are sometimes just nice to each other. And sometimes guys, I guess.
I have no trouble with many compliments, such
For
as
the record,
nice catch or what a well-dug hole.
No. I do think there is almost like a whole category of women. This is going to sound really misogynistic, and maybe it is a little bit, but I feel like there are almost a category of women who want men to like them without necessarily liking the men themselves. So they do act a certain way. They like a flirt or a tease a little bit. They want to be appreciated without really being interested in the guy. So I don't know how exactly you would maybe define that. A coquette, I believe that's the phrase the French use. Can't do anything else except for cook, but maybe they can come up with good phrases with reference to romantic situations, I guess.
Or, I thought you delivered that calf expertly.
Perfect cut.
Or, what a well-dug hole. Or, I thought you delivered that calf expertly. I don't have much call to give them, admittedly, but if I ever need to, I'm confident they will trip effortlessly off my tongue. What I can't do is successfully compliment anyone on their appearance. You look nice today. Such a simple pleasantry, but I find it almost impossible. I mean, how personal. Look at the assumptions it makes. I have been scrutinizing your appearance.
I feel like sometimes it's just a matter of not thinking too hard about it. Because the more you think about most things, it's just gonna become like really, really crazy. Like they work on a very shallow level. If you're just like, hey, yeah, you look nice today, and you don't think about it that too much, they probably won't think about it that much either, right? Unless you are genuinely a creepy person, but in which case, you giving the compliment probably wouldn't make them think you were creepier or less creepy. It has no impact in and of itself. So, again, sometimes it's best just not to overthink it.
I think you look better now than you usually do. I consider myself a fit judge to make such a call. Any one of
And I am a fit judge.
those I would find deeply embarrassing. Together, they're an embarrassment neutron bomb. No, my version of being polite is to at all costs avoid rudeness. And it feels like I have a much better chance of making that work by shutting up than by speaking. I mean, I'm not a complete idiot. I do understand it's all part of the low-level, polite fancying we're supposed to collude in, whereby we...
Give me a second. I want to move my thing to the other side. Because apparently, I don't know if he's always going to be over there. What the deuce? No, we're good. We're good. Alright, I think that'll do for now.
imply in a non-threatening way that all men slightly fancy all women all the time. Whilst meanwhile all women are supposed to find all men slightly annoying all the time.
I do kind of feel like overthinking is almost this guy's thing, though. It's his forte.
Oh, you women, we say. Oh, you men, they reply. But nonetheless, what is supposed to be going on when I, a specific man, tell a specific woman she's looking nice? Is it something we're ideally just supposed to say to every woman, entirely irrespective of how they're actually looking? In which case it's fine, but meaningless, and could surely be replaced by some other generalized meaningless greeting, like, I don't know, hello.
For the record, I don't think I generally tell people that they're looking good. Sometimes it will say people, well, yeah, not often in any case. Like if someone does something different with facial hair, sometimes they'll say, "Oh yeah, nice looking beard." I feel like that's something you can do in a manly way, but beyond that, not much.
Or is it about recognizing that effort has been put in, which God knows is no guarantee of effect? Surely a compliment about effort just boils down to, you must have jumped through a lot of hoops to achieve that, given what you had to work with. Or is it actually what it seems to be, a straightforward praising of the attractive? In which case, surely whenever we don't say it...
See, that's like, you're looking good and you're attractive is not exactly the same thing. Like, saying that person looks good, it feels like there's different, like, connotation there, where you can say a person looks, oh, you're looking nice, or something like that, and it doesn't carry the same connotation as, you're looking very attractive tonight, because in that case, you're kind of inferring, you're looking very attractive to me. Which if you're not in a relationship with a person and you don't necessarily want to be, it's not exactly a great way to go about it.
Drawing attention to the unattractiveness of the unpraised by our very silence. Surely that can't be a good thing. We don't call...
Give me a second.
In which case, surely whenever we don't say it, we're drawing attention to the unattractiveness of the unpraised by our very silence.
Silent judgment, yeah. Feel it. That means we think you're ugly. Just bear that in mind the next time you go to a party.
Surely that can't be a good thing. We don't call the poor poor or the stupid stupid. Why, by omission, call the ugly ugly? And what are you supposed to do when 2 or 3 women enter together? It's all very well saying beauty is subjective, but let's face it, it's not that subjective. There are some pretty clear objective guidelines laid down by now, and we all know what they are. So, in all probability, the 3 women know perfectly well in what order of attractiveness they rank. And I know it, and they know I know it. So what do? Emphasize the order we're already all aware.
And the 2 uglier women are probably trying to get the more attractive one to try a different haircut, which involves, a half shave or something. What are those things called? Where a woman like shaves half her head up. For the record, I think they can look good, but I also am fully aware that they are not like a typical attractive behavior for a female.
Of by giving graded compliments. Anna, you look absolutely radiant. Brenda, you're looking perfectly acceptable. Clara, you're also here. No, surely not. So, just praise Anna and Brenda and let my silence fall pointedly on the twisted, hunched shoulders of Clara? Or praise them all equally and effusively, at which point they'll all know my compliments are empty and meaningless, and I can get embarrassed in 3 different ways simultaneously and go and jump in a canal. No. The simple, elegant answer, it seems to me, is to make sure that wherever I go, I take with me a small hand mirror. And then, whenever I meet someone who seems like she might be expecting me to comment on her appearance, I can simply say, "How lovely to see you. You look like this."
I just want to point out he's saying how lovely to see you, which is also technically just a social nicety. Again, I feel like he's kind of overthinking it, but that does seem like kind of his whole shtick. I'm forgetting waste in politics. We'll see if I keep this one, because I'm trying to... I feel like I want to be more careful about the videos I choose these days, because I feel like I've been unavoidably sucked into some of that crap because of just like a lack of caution or a lack of circumscribed behavior in the videos I choose. So yeah, it's kind of it's one of those things where like I'm interested in on an academical level, so if I'm in a video where it's present, it's hard for me not to get involved, and I don't want to get involved. Because I don't want to get involved. It's annoying. And I find it stressful in a also, yeah, some other stuff. Anyways.
No one likes tax raises. No one likes underfunded public services. It's that pesky old like having things, dislike paying for things dilemma again. But luckily, there is a third way. A solution discovered anew by opposition parties in every election. They're not going to cut public funding. Good Lord, no. They're not going to raise taxes. Perish the thought. They're quite simply going to eliminate waste. Of course, if only we'd thought of that. All that waste we waste, we could just stop wasting it, and then it wouldn't be wasted. After all, anyone who's ever worked in a large organization knows there definitely is waste. We've all seen it. If all that waste just pisses off, quailing under the basilisk stare of the new...
There's actually a thing I was thinking of. It's what you would call, like, hold me back politics, where a person who's seeking election anywhere on any side of the political spectrum, they kind of come at it with this type of thing like, man, hold me back, man, if I was in power, you know what I'd do? You'd do nothing, okay? It feels like a lot of like the prospective politician can promise any number of things, and they can go at it with a degree of ambition that a person who's in power can't show, right? Because they know that if or when they get into power, they don't have to necessarily make good on this stuff. And they probably know that on some level, some of these things they're promising are completely impractical. But as long as they're outside of power, like, as long as they're fighting against the man, they can do all sorts of things. They can promise any sort of things. They can practice a type of promissory political, like, platforming, where they're running on the position of, yeah, we're going to do all of this stuff, this optimistic vision of what they're going to do if they get into... Like, it's kind of insufferable in general, I tend to think. Because, again, like, really? Yeah, I don't know.
Guys, surely there'll be more money for everyone. Hooray! Well, no, unhooray. You can't just eliminate waste. How would you go about it? If you took over a pub, would you announce that from now on there will be no money lost on spillages or breakages? Because
Exactly.
everyone's going to be really careful. Waste is an inherent part of big organizations, and for that matter, small organizations, and for that matter, everyday life. And when a new government is formed, it doesn't mean the new lot...
It does feel like the larger an organization becomes, the more waste can become a thing, because it's like a less bespoke type of thing, in theory. But I'm
take
not
over
sure.
the running of everything, middle manage every hospital, drive every bus. It means there are 20 new guys at the top making, if they're lucky, broad policy changes. Underneath them, everything is run by exactly the same people as before, presumably at broadly the same level of wastefulness or parsimony as before. So the
Blackpilling.
implication is that when one party says it's against waste, their rivals are somehow in
Prepare to be politically blackpilled.
favor of it. that they've been enthusiastically investing in better and newer types of waste instead of incubators for hospitals.
They have, obviously. Dirty commies.
Who are these bastards, we're invited to ask, saying keep waste, stick the newborns in shoeboxes? They don't exist, obviously. The question of waste is not one of attitude, it's one of competence. And when it comes to the main parties, I suspect most people in both, or neither, would agree that the top 20 Labour brains...
Here's the question. What is the Green Party in England? I have to look that up sometime. Like, I wonder if they're just like kind of an environmentally conscious party, or if it's literal, like they're in favor of green policies or something.
The top 20 Tory brains are roughly equivalent. I certainly admit... parties, I suspect most people in both, or neither, would agree that the top 20 Labour brains and the top 20 Tory brains are roughly equivalent. I certainly admit that if the
It's probably true-ish. I guess I don't know. Again, prepare to be politically blackpilled.
BNP were to suddenly sweep to power, we could all expect a lot more waste, simply as a consequence of putting morons in charge of money. And whilst the Greens are not morons and infinitely nicer people generally, I'm afraid I suspect they'd piss rather more money up the wall than any of the parties whose recruitment of the able has been boosted by their proximity to real power. But in
It's true. Again.
general, the role of
Blackpilling. Yay.
politicians is to come up with new ideas, a new approach. Not the same old, impossible idea, but with a fierce, visionary look.
I just remember this scene on Corner Gas where it's like, oh, your solution is simple but impossible. Because like that can be again, it feels like politicians who aren't in power can take an optimistic view of things in their political campaigning, and they can say that, oh, yeah, we're gonna, like, very rarely do they bring it down to any sort of practical application of it. And to be fair, I don't know if they really have to. They just have to get people excited about what they're doing.
Their eye to suggest that
More blackpilling.
this time, they mean it. Well, that's the last of these, whatever the proper word for these things is, for now at least. Hopefully there will be a second bunch in the future when I've worked up the requisite ire. But for now, let me just leave you with a recap of what I think you'll agree is the broad gist of my message, the central plank of the manifesto I have been subtly assembling over the past 24 weeks. If you take nothing else away from this series, at least take this. People should be more polite, not insist on consensus, and be better at spelling, whatever Rob says. Men don't get man flu, should stick to black tie, should go to the doctor more, but groom themselves less. Women shouldn't expect flowers or compliments from me. Mice shouldn't expect to be driven to the country by me. Hauliers are fooling us all. The Cornish are only fooling themselves. Waste-cutting politicians are fooling...
For the record, I'm pretty sure, as the picture suggests, hauliers are just truckers, I guess?
no one. The Welsh are great. The elderly are not as great as they were, but don't deserve the cards they get. Pillage doesn't make rape any better. The British still can't.
I think we're actually going to watch that one at the end. I'd had that one, I think, in line where it was supposed to be, but then somehow it gotten deleted and I didn't get it put back where it was supposed to be, I think.
Hook, you can't be passionate about a sofa. Louis Riard invented the bikini. Bitter doesn't taste of cream. I don't want
I didn't know that.
to tell you how much
Sounds like a French guy. Of course it was a French guy.
I earn, and you're welcome to sleep with my...
The only other person I would think it would maybe be was like Danish or something. They have some sort of weird degenerate sex trends in their company. Yeah, country. Dang it.
my corpse. Thank you to Bulldog. Thank you to Fourth Estate. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Give me a second. I want to grab some more. All right. Let's do this.
You've probably heard the fable of King Canute trying to stop the tide
I had not, for the record.
coming in.
And I've heard a lot of fables, for the record. I gotta stop saying for the record so much. I gotta come up with some other, like, filler word. It's annoying me.
What happened was King Canute the Great, the FCUK of the late 10th and early
I'm telling you, I've heard a lot of fables, okay? Does that work better?
11th century, who ruled much of Britain and Scandinavia, tried to stop the tide coming in, and it didn't. No surprises there. But what's interesting is that there are two basic versions of the story. In one, he was a foolish, power-crazed king who thought he could do it and couldn't, at which point the whole of his court pointed and laughed and called him a silly wet...
It's weird how stuff like that happens. Because, like, I would have heard something, like, growing up, you would hear this thing where, old wives' tale or something like that. Yes, I know it's sexist. I'm not going to stop using it. Old wives' tale where, people would believe that effectively all of your hair for your genes comes from your mother's side, which I think is factually untrue. It comes from both sides. Or at least it's not distinct to one side. Point being, I don't know how, like, stuff like that really gets started. Like, how is a story like that? Is it just someone who wants to be clever comes up with some sort of weird, just, oh, did you hear about this thing last week? What's the phrase? Like a urban legend. How do those things get... It's kind of interesting the way stories like that get passed around.
In the other version...
But it could just be like that generally in small talk, we don't seem to want... Like, we don't do a lot of fact-checking because the stakes are relatively low. It's just you telling it to one other person and that person telling it to a couple other people, etc., etc. The method of passage maybe allows for that, where it's not like one person standing up in front of a whole bunch of people and saying it, so no one really checks it. It's just kind of, hey, I'm talking to Joe Schmo, and hey, maybe I heard this thing last week. It's kind of innocuous as far as it's concerned, so you don't really worry that much about it. Intriguing, though.
It's his stupid courtiers who think he can do it, and he proves them wrong in a way that shows he is wise and humble, though still ultimately soggy. Though even if that's the true version, there must have been a little voice at the back of his mind as he issued the first command saying, I mean, I almost certainly can't do this, but if by any chance it turns out that I can, this isn't half going to give Edward Bloody Ironside something to think about. I realise the real answer to what happened that day is nothing, because it didn't happen at all. Canute is just a figure on which a myth about a proud and or humble king somehow got pegged. It's odd that they picked...
Okay, so Edward Ironsides and Edward Longshanks, is that the same person? Admittedly, my English history is rather non-existent. Not non-existently, it's non-existent, kind of. William the Conqueror, that was the guy, right? All those families, all those royal houses and whatnot. Crap like that. I don't know if I even really have that much of an interest in it.
Such a solid, not particularly semi-mythological historical figure. I mean, Canute's not like St. George or Midas, people who may have existed but we have so little other information about that lots of myths about killing dragons and turning things into gold have got invented to plug the gap. There was lots of gold in the part of modern-day Turkey where someone called Midas was apparently king, so he became a convenient place to hang a fable about a king who wants everything to turn to gold and, whoops, can't have lunch. Of course, even without...
That one I did hear.
Out the ha-ha, you've killed your daughter sting in the tail, it was a stupid plan.
I think it would have said Midas, though. Not Midas. Midas.
Even if it had worked out precisely the way Midas hoped, the effect would not have been Midas becoming incredibly rich with all his new gold saucepans. It would have been the value of gold would plummet, and both his new gold and his old gold would be equally pretty.
If Midas was standing on the earth, and everything Midas touched turned to gold, feels like there's a hole in the logic there.
But worthless. No attention to the basic
Or
foundation.
the air, for the record. A stag nabbit. I'm gonna figure that out. Stupid.
Of economics, these semi-mythical kings. But Canute's plan wasn't all that great either, even if you accept the charitable, you silly courtiers version. The thing to do when everyone who works for you thinks you can stop the sea is sack them. Not
and send them to a psychologist for to be checked out.
demonstrate damply that you can't stop the sea and then hope that they'll fish you out. Monarchs generally do themselves no favours by engineering themselves into a position where they're up to their neck in chainmail and brine, shouting, "You see, I'm as powerless as you are."
Briny. That's one I don't use it often. In the brine. I think it just means salt water.
No, the version that makes most sense to me is neither of the above. I reckon what actually happened, leaving aside that, as discussed, nothing actually happened, is that Canute and his courtiers were equally sure of the big man's tide-stopping powers at first. I don't know who started it. Maybe a courtier said to Canute, "You're so great, I bet even the sea would do what you told it." And Canute replied judiciously,
It's like modern day with online figures. They get all hyped up on their bunch of simpletons who they've managed to convince to follow them. I think it's a phrase from Sherlock Holmes, who is probably quoting someone else. A fool always finds a greater fool to admire him.
"Yes, fair point, I reckon it probably would. Or maybe it was the other way round. In any case, when the whole experiment was carried out, I think everyone, king and court,
Please don't apply that to me.
was backing the guy in the royal purple
Sorry, I don't want to insult my audience either. You're obviously the cream of the crop.
corner over the entity in the vast wobbly blue corner.
But I guess I do feel like a lot of some of the crap people get into online is because they're being gassed up by professional yes men / sycophants / whatever. Anyways.
The waves began lapping at the royal knees. Canute, who didn't get to be called the Great without being a quick thinker in a tight spot, turned to his courtiers and said, "Well, I hope you've all learned a valuable lesson here today." That's what I'd have done.
Yeah.
Dear Americans, as you know, everyone in Britain knows the Queen, and she's
Balderdash.
asked me to have a quick word with you on her behalf about her
Codswallop.
English. Don't worry, this isn't the standard tedious British sneering about lieutenants and aluminum. Essentially, her message is, use it how you
Pig swill.
like. She doesn't mind. She doesn't mind about the sensible ones, like spelling plough the way it quite obviously should be spelt. But nor did
How is it spelled in England? 'Cause I'm thinking of two spellings. Plow, Plough. Now, I'm assuming both are correct, but I'm not sure which one is English and which one is American. I'm going to guess plow, like OW, would probably be American.
she mind about the silly ones, like saying tidbit, because you think the syllable tit is intrinsically rude. By all means, leave the U out of colour if it bothers you. I can quite see that the bit of a car you put stuff in looks more like a trunk than a boot, and that sidewalks are the bit at the side that you walk on. Fine, says the Queen.
What do they call sidewalks?
Help yourself. She couldn't care less. She couldn't care less, though. Not she could care less. That's the one thing she'd really like you to stop saying.
And it's technically one that it just makes no sense whatsoever. It feels like though a lot of language just gets like, again, I try not to be like too persnickety. If I understand what the other person's saying, I like, if I can manage it, I think I just try to, yeah, fine, whatever. It is what people use it to mean, so.
Because that, as an expression for not or hardly caring, just makes no sense. If you could care less about something, then all you're telling us is that you do care at least a little bit. Because you could care less. But if you couldn't care less... Look, observe this graph. Here's me on the scale of caring. I'm at 0. Therefore, since negative caring is impossible, or rather is simply caring of another sort, love and hate being different sides of the same coin, etc., etc., I couldn't care less. I could care more, but I couldn't care less.
Yeah, it does seem like both love and hatred just involve, well, getting involved, becoming entangled in the scenario or the person or the event that's happening. In the same way that pain and pleasure both involve, like, getting in, like, neither of them are apathy. Neither of them are, like, non-involvement. They're both just kind of, they both have meaning, just in a different way. They both involve getting entangled on some level in what's going on in your life. It's kind of weird.
I could care less, I would have to care at least the smallest possible unit of caring in order to give myself room to care less. I can't care nothing if I could care less. But I might care much more than nothing. I could care anything from here to here. And I could still truthfully claim to be able to care less. I could care less is absolutely useless as an indicator of how much you care, because the only thing it rules out is that you don't care at all, which is exactly what you're trying to
Again, it's a stupid one, but again, it just is kind of what people use it to mean.
convey. So that's the one thing I really want. The Queen really wants you to stop saying. Although while I've got you, the expression is, can
Yeah, the Queen.
you hold the fort? Not hold down the fort. If I ask you to hold
Technically, it's the king now, I think. I'm pretty sure people don't really like him that much. At least the ones I've heard of don't like him that much.
the fort, the metaphor I'm employing is perfectly clear. You and I
Admittedly, though, I don't know if they were British. Well, maybe some of them were British. I don't know.
are in the fort together, holding out against the enemies of the fort who are besieging the fort. I now have to pop out of the fort for a bit to get some printer toner or take the cat to the vet. While I do this, don't worry about how I'll get past the besieging enemy. I have a secret tunnel and a false beard. While I do this, I want you to hold the fort so that when I come back, we'll both still have the fort.
I think I would use the term, like, hold down the fort. Oh, no, I think I disagree with him on this one. I like the notion of holding down the fort, kind of like notion of keeping things grounded or stable or something like that. I feel like that kind of makes sense.
Get past the besieging enemy. I have a secret tunnel and down the fort. If I ask you to care at all, which is exactly what you're trying to convey. So that's the one thing I really want. The Queen really wants you to stop saying.
Right.
Although while I've got you, the expression is, can you hold the fort? Not hold down the fort. If I ask you to hold the
Is
fort...
that a thing that's like entirely unique to Americans? Because like I would never would have thought of it as being, well, maybe it's just not something you would think of.
Fort, the metaphor I'm employing is perfectly clear. You and I are in the fort together, holding out against the enemies of the fort who are besieging the fort. I now have to pop out of the fort for a bit to get some printer toner or take the cat to the vet. While I do this, don't worry about how I'll get past the besieging enemy. I have a secret tunnel and a false beard. While I do this, I want you to hold the fort.
I feel like the mustache would actually be more important than the beard itself. Because like that would be almost more distracting if you had like a prodigious mustache and a goatee or something. Yeah, that would do a better job of changing stuff.
So that when I come back, we'll both still have the fort. A perfectly reasonable metaphor embodying a sound military strategy. If I ask you to hold down the fort, what the hell am I talking about?
Again, keeping the fort grounded. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but I feel like it kind of makes more sense than the other one.
Down the fort while I go out?
Come on. I could care less one.
Because, as you know, it's an inflatable hover fort. And once relieved of my weight, it might float off into the sky. Hold down the...
Okay, give me a second. Oh, it's a bookworm? I assume?
And once relieved of my weight, it might float off into the sky. Hold down the fort, and when I get back, the two of us can tickle the fort. No, meaningless. Stop it. But those are the only two things. Stop doing those, and you can say research and Bernard to your heart's content. Although...
How do they say Bernard? Research. I assume that's how they say research. 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 Bernard. Yeah.
Herbs. Really?
Who cares? We beat them in both. Yeah. We beat them in one war, and we helped them in the ones that they were getting thrashed in, so, you know. You suck.
You're French now, are you? With your herbal tea and your herbal remedies? Well, fine. Whatever makes you happy. I could care less.
To be fair, I agree with him on the herbal thing. Again, we'll see if we keep this one. It's a little bit about well, it might be more about reporting.
Gladiatorial Newsnight presenter Jeremy Paxman once quoted Louis
Gladiatorial news reporter. That would maybe describe Piers Morgan a little bit. He kind of feels like he's a little bit the host of that, though. Or the type of, like, the host of a gladiatorial news night type thing.
Aaron's line that when interviewing politicians, the question to keep in mind is, why is this lying bastard
Gladiatorial news reporter. Has a nice ring to it.
lying to me now? Which is probably just self-promotional preening. But even if so, political interviewers' readiness to indulge in self-promotional preening is exactly the problem with political interviews these days.
Right, true.
And if it does genuinely reflect how he feels, then so much the worse, because surely assuming both the specific dishonesty and the general bastardy of your subject is a terrible way to conduct an interview.
Like, it feels like, I think he's right in that, like, a certain degree of trust is required for any sort of cooperation. Like, if you don't trust the other person, you might as well just throw down, right? You might as well just say, let's, have a fight or something. But it feels like you kind of have to, like, at least behave as though you want to cooperate with the other individual. Behave as though there's some level of trust and cooperation. And to a certain extent, I think you can actually expect that from people, because there's a certain degree of it that is, like, self-interested. Past a certain point, hostility just becomes completely ridiculous on an intellectual scale. So everyone, to some extent, has to have, like, a certain basic level of cooperation with like, other people. You can't just come up with your own language and refuse to use anyone else's type of language or something like that. So, yeah, I think he's got a point there.
Interview. Don't believe all you're told, by all means, but don't automatically disbelieve all you're told either. That's just as unhelpful a filter.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from anything else, it not only discounts the possibility that the politician is being honest, but also that they're being stupid or incompetent or have been duped, or, most likely, that they're refusing to say anything of any value, true or false, because the constant matadorish displays of big-name interviewers like Paxman and John Humphreys have made them reluctant to commit to anything but the most anodyne and unrevealing political platitudes.
Anodyne, I have to look that one up, but I do think in the age of kind of TV shows and news programs, clippable moments, perhaps especially since the advent of social media, I feel like that has become even more of a thing. This is done multiple years ago. I think I mentioned that in the last one. This is probably like 7-8 years ago. That's become even, I think it's aged very well. It's become probably more true these days.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all for cynicism, and a big admirer of the doctrine of expecting the worst and never being disappointed. Imagine how much fun I am at parties. But
yeah.
if you make it your policy to disbelieve whatever's said to you, there's no point in asking any questions at all. You might just as well simply spend the 6 minutes flicking V sign.
Oh, that's like, what's the phrase? Trust but verify. I feel like sometimes, like, in the absence of, I don't know, I guess the notion would be that, like, a thing might not be compelling in and of itself, and maybe it should be supplemental to, a greater, more compelling evidence or something like that. But in general, like, the notion of taking people at their word makes, I guess, somewhat sense too, because, like, in a lot of scenarios, like, why would you lie about something like that, especially if it's easily verifiable? Like, if there's no apparent motive to lie, I mean, just go with it until there is, I guess. I don't know.
At them. Something I would be entirely unsurprised to learn Humphreys in fact does under cover of it being...
Sorry.
...in asking any questions at all. You might just as well simply spend the 6 minutes flicking V signs at them. Something I would be entirely unsurprised to learn Humphreys in fact does under cover of it being radio.
I do feel like that, yeah. There's some political punditry which is roughly equivalent to that.
This isn't to say I think either of these men are bad journalists, but I do think they fetishize their own interviewing technique and are encouraged to fetishize it by those around them. After all, it's very unlikely that their interviewee will be caught out in a demonstrable lie, because then they'd be required to resign. They're far more likely to be prevaricating, obfuscating bastards,
Prevaricating
and obfuscating to you. Which, of course, Paxman knows, as that was the point of his overrated "did you threaten to overrule him" thing, which, to be fair, he has himself admitted was only filler, but which is now mistaken for scrutiny, when what it was repetition. But if it will help move things along, I'd like to take a shot at the answer to the question, why is this lying bastard lying to me now? It's, he's probably not. And if he is, it's because you and those who aspire to your eminence have been so relentlessly and unimaginatively combative that the
Just want to point out these things.
politicians, like frequently whipped dogs, have learned either to cower or to snap, neither of which allow any meaningful discourse between media and politics.
Political blackmailing. Yes. I think he's got some points there. All right, we'll leave it at that, and we'll finish the rest of these later. I believe there is a couple more I want to watch. We'll do another episode after a little bit here. I might even put them in a playlist or something.